Hey guys, so in this video I'm going to be going through the key studies for family in sociology, so please enjoy. So the first study is Delphi and Leonard, who write from a feminist perspective, and they argue that men are the main benefiters from the exploitation of women in the family, and they believe family has the central role in maintaining patriarchy in society because women are unpaid in their domestic duties in the house, even if they have paid employment elsewhere. And so men benefit from these labour relations as the man doesn't have to do any of these household tasks, and also he is the breadwinner, so he has control over the family's income. And then the family as a whole is based on a hierarchy where the husbands are at the top, and so they kind of provide for the wife's upkeep, so they give the wife the money and the shelter of the home, and so this means that the man can control her. But then there is some criticisms of this study, as some people would say they don't take into account families that are equal, that have a man and a woman who have equal tasks in the house and are the same in regards to equality, so there's no kind of hierarchy and they share power between them. And then also Marxists would go against this study as a whole and argue that family inequalities actually maintain capitalism and not patriarchy. The next study is Wilmot and Young, who write from a functionalist perspective, and their study is based on a large amount of research. I think it's quite important to mention. So they studied over 2,000 families in this study, and so they described the symmetrical family, which means both the wife and the husband give similar contributions to the running of the household and daily tasks, even if they perform different tasks within the household. For example, even if the woman does cleaning and the man does the cooking, they both spend an equal amount of time doing these tasks, so the roles are equal, which Young and Wilmot called joint conjugal roles, as you probably learned about. And they called this the stage 3 family, which spread to the working class through something called stratified diffusion, which means it comes from the higher classes, and then the working class adapt it and take on this type of family as well. And they also predicted the asymmetrical family, which is where the husbands will be more involved in work and the domestic duties will be given to the wives. And then we can talk about criticisms again of this study. So feminists would argue that the family is not symmetrical and that women do most of the household chores. Feminists would criticise this study and say the family is not symmetrical and women still have to perform most of the household jobs. And also some people would say because Young and Wilmot only focused on an independent nuclear family but failed to consider the extended family becoming more important or being more important currently. The next study is Anne Oakley, who writes from a feminist perspective, and she studied the conventional family, so a basic nuclear family with a married couple and children. And she argues that norms are not changing in families and the conventional family is being reproduced and they set a pattern for the new generations that they will copy. So this means that the role of women in the house isn't changing and women still do the unpaid work and men do the paid work outside of the house, which means the man is still the breadwinner and has economic power, so the woman is dependent on the man and his wages. And also she looked at people who explored different family types, so women who were trying lone parent families instead, which arguably would benefit them because they didn't have to rely on the man. And then unlike Young and Wilmot, she saw little evidence of the symmetrical family and saw the women as still having the main role in the house regarding household chores. The next study is Parson, who writes from a functionalist perspective, and he identified 2 basic functions of the family, hence functionalist. His first one was primary socialisation, which means that children learn and accept society's learned norms and values, which helps maintain a stable society if people all share the same values. And also he studied the stabilisation of adult personalities, which means the husband and the wife support each other emotionally throughout their lives, which relieves stress from everyday life, which is also known as the warm bath theory. And this means that the family plays a key role in maintaining the emotional stability of adults, which is paramount for society to run. But then there is some criticisms of this, as Parson gives an idealistic view of the family which doesn't necessarily match reality. For example, he ignores dysfunctional families and possibly working class families. He might just be basing his theory on middle class. The next study is Rappaport and The next study is Rappaport, who studied family diversity and basically managed to outline 5 main types. So first, organisational diversity, which means that families vary in structure. For example, you've got lone parent families compared to nuclear families. And also there's variations in how within they organise their domestic division of labour, so between the man and the woman, how they share roles in the house. And then cultural diversity, so different ethnicities will illustrate diversity in different ways through their beliefs as well as their values. And then social class diversity, so social class affects resources, as we know, so this can also affect role relations as well as child rearing practices. For example, how parents discipline. You might say working class families might be more disciplined than higher classes. And also life course diversity, so the stage in the family cycle which the family is at. For example, a family with young children is at the start, or if you go later on, it will be an empty nest family where the children have grown up and left home. And also you can study cohort diversity, which is the period of time where the family passes through its certain life cycle. So for example, a couple 50 years ago might not have got divorced because it was more difficult to get a divorce, but a couple today are more likely to get a divorce. So younger couples are more likely to get them than older couples in the past. The last study is Zaretsky, and he writes from a Marxist perspective. And so he believes that modern capitalist society has created an illusion that the private life, so the life in the home, is separate from the public life or public sphere, which means the economy and work. And so he believes the family doesn't provide for the psychological and social needs of the people, as he believes the nuclear family has an economic function, that the nuclear family works to serve the interests of capitalism, as women undertake unpaid labour, which is devalued in society even though the system of labour relies upon this, because if the family didn't upkeep, then it would arguably collapse. And also, throughout time, social classes reproduce, so the bourgeoisie, the rich families, transmit their wealth to their next generations through inheritance, whereas the proletariat families, they reproduce the labour force which is needed for work and to create a stable society. And then the family is also a unit of consumption for capitalism itself, since the family buys the products of capitalism, so the basic essentials of life, food, etc., which means the bourgeoisie make profit off them. Then there's also some criticisms, which is that Zaretsky ignores the fact that many are satisfied with family life and marriage life and don't really mind this whole power balance. And he also believes that only socialism is the way to separate the family and the work life. However, this is quite naive, and we can see this not working in the past, for example, with Russia and the Soviet Union.